Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Jordan Carroll. Hey, Jordan, how are you, brother?
Hey, Cesar. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you. So I want to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background and then dive into our conversation.
Sure.
So Jordan has worked over 5 years remotely in the U.S. and while traveling internationally for a Fortune 50 company, startups and his own business. He's lived in over 15 countries on 5 different continents in the past 2 years and is a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. He creates content, courses, and a one-on-one coaching program to help high performers learn a process to land legitimate remote jobs and gain freedom and flexibility in their lives. And
yes, sir.
That's amazing because we were actually just talking about that. You're joining us from Playa del Carmen.
Playa del Carmen, Mexico. See, yeah, I think the beauty of remote work is that it allows you to create a lifestyle that you want around the work that you want to do as well. And that's the beauty. Is that I see a lot of people that maybe get stuck in the work kind of defining their lifestyle. Right. But I've thought for quite a long time that it should be the other way around. So
yeah, and you're definitely making it, which is good. And I definitely want to tap into that and learn more about, the mentality and the ideas that go behind that, because you're right. A lot of people just kind of go into that 9 to 5 and, you're pretty much the business is running or those jobs are running you versus you run your own, your own life or your own schedule. Right. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think with just to kind of look at what your brand is all about, overcoming anything and being able to do things even when the world says no. I think that that's exactly what remote work is in its essence, is saying to the establishment, it's saying to the status quo, like, nope, I'm not going to fall into that. I'm going to be able to overcome a lot of my issues. Like a lot of my personal problems in my life have been overcome because of the freedom and flexibility that remote work has provided me. So it's so much more than work. It's truly a transcendental. That's a big word. Transcendental piece of my life that's allowed me to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, I love it. So let's talk about where are you originally from, and what was your upbringing as a kid?
Yeah. I'm from California, so I'm from the Bay Area in California, very diverse area in Fremont. So it's in between Oakland and San Jose.
Yeah.
I grew up very shy and socially anxious, actually. So
really? Okay.
What I did this quite different than how I am now. But I remember at least going through high school and even university and things like that. The way that I would socialize with people is just whoever would smoke weed with me. Like that was that's who I wanted to associate with. I was like, who's down to smoke? And like, that was like my thing. And that doesn't make you any less socially anxious, just so you know.
Okay.
Probably a lot more.
Yeah. You know what? And even thinking about that, whether, is either drinking or smoking or going to parties or whatever that might be, I want to get your opinion on this, except I believe that a lot of times we as people tend to seek and find or search for those communities where you're, looking to fit in, right? And you tend to go into, whether it's good or bad, you tend to go into those group of people just because you're trying to find that commonality. So what is your thought on that?
I think there's a couple factors at play. I think humans were naturally social creatures, right? And we need acceptance from people. So there's that part of us that are searching from acceptance in those groups, like you said. And then there's another part of us that emotionally, at least for me, I was looking for an escape. So I was looking for an escape from reality because the emotions that I felt towards myself or, towards the things that were happening in the world, I didn't want to deal with those. And I found that through a large portion of my life, I would find that escape through alcohol, through drugs, through, whatever it is that it could, you could be even food too, right? Like actually that's the one that's still hardest for me out of all of them. I've gotten rid of alcohol. I've gotten rid of, cigarettes and stuff like that. But food, man, food is such a comfort thing.
It is.
You can find your escape in so many different things and substances,
Yeah. And talking about finding your escape, like in your particular case, what were you escaping from, or what was some of the things that were kind of holding you back? And you're like, I need to like get out of this and just kind of find a different escape route.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question because I didn't grow up in a shitty situation. I wasn't in a spot where, it's almost like you look back in your life and you're like, why was I feeling that way? And you feel stupid for feeling that way. But the reality is we all have issues. Even if if you look at some of look at a kid who's born into like the richest of rich situations and their parents are never there. They have everything done for them. Like they're going to end up fucked up, right? Like, because they have no grasp of reality. And then if you look on the other end of the spectrum, someone who grows up in poverty, and I know that you talk about growing up in a very dire situation of poverty and having issues with finding food to eat, where to sleep, and then there's the spectrum in the middle. It's like none of us escape this without issues. It's a matter of like, what are your problems? And for me, I think I was, I'm born into a family of some mental health issues for sure. So without going into too much detail, depression, bipolarism, and like alcoholism and different types of things that have affected people within my family that I think as I grew up, I started to either kind of not necessarily adopt exactly what they're doing, but I might have received some of that from a hereditary perspective, or I might have from an environment perspective just been socially anxious and not really known how to fit in. And I think we all go through that journey of, again, acceptance and trying to figure out where we fit in. And I didn't feel like I ever did.
Yeah. And part of that too, I think, now knowing what I know now is that, as we grow up in between 0 and 7, that's when our mind is more responsive. And so the things that we see as kids, that tends to stay with you. And as you're getting older, you got to be able to work on those things, whether it's good or bad, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever environment you are brought upon, that's the environment that, that you believe in your mind. And you got to be able to kind of change that throughout the journey, right? And so in terms of you, when you ended up after college, like, did you ever imagine doing what you're doing now, or what was your idea?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I ever imagined it because I don't think I could have imagined the importance of remote work and where it ended up going. My first time working remotely was in 2013, pretty much by accident because I was interviewing with a company that I didn't have. Apparently, they said I didn't have enough sales experience for. So I went and got a telemarketing job. And at that time, I was also working 2 other part-time jobs, and I was going to full-time university classes. And I was telemarketing in between my shift and then my class for my other job and then my course load. And I'd go and do like a telemarketing hour. And the whole reason was I wanted to put it on my resume, go back to the people that were interviewing me and say, hey, look, I went and got a telemarketing job within the time that we've spoken in the next interview. I've gotten this many sales. I've got sales experience. I want to show you that I can do this. And it didn't dawn on me at that time that this was going to be such an important part of my life as far as like remote work. And then I ended up getting a corporate job right after college, which was awesome at IBM, where I eventually went remote with them. I negotiated my role to be remote with them during the training program I was in. And then I ended up working remotely for them for like 3 or 4 years after that. And that, that ability to just kind of travel or be all over the country. And I even got to go to Canada and just have that freedom, I was like, I'm never going to go to an office, I don't think, again.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense to me. And I don't think I would do well in it. So I continued to find other positions that would allow me to do that. And then I also started my own businesses that allowed me to do that.
Yeah. Did you ever get any kind of a pushback or any negative comments from friends or family saying, hey, you know, what are you doing? Or it doesn't fit in with you?
No, not necessarily. But I think where I did find maybe pushback or negative feedback was within some of these organizations. I'll just say this, like, there's a learning curve to working remotely. And I will admit I was not the best employee at IBM at times. I was not the best employee when I left IBM and I went from a company that was 400,000 people to a company that was 3 people.
Wow. Yeah.
Doing that and just working remotely, it's such a different experience because you have so much impact on the company, whereas before I didn't. Yeah. So, you know, some of the things I could get away with, you're not getting away with that stuff because you're working directly with the CEO and the COO and any other freelancers and people that we were directly working with as well. So I had to go through this learning curve every time you start with a new company, every time you start with a new environment, there's a learning curve. And I don't think enough people like really dissect what is that going to take, especially when it's going to be something remote because you don't have that office. You have to be very self-motivated.
Yeah. So when you obviously gone from 15 different countries, 5 different continents, like living that life, and maybe people are wondering, like, how easy or difficult has that been for you to be going back and forth between different cultures, different aspects of the different countries?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. It was easier to me than staying in the US. Like, I felt more called to do this. Yeah. And I think if you talk to people that travel as extensively as I might have in that 2-year span, or people that are expats that live outside, their country, they'll tell you most of the time that there's something that's called them to travel and do this that pretty much is stronger than any other instinct that you could have as a person. It's almost like almost every person that I talk to that travels like this, they went through some breakup that caused them to do this, an existential life crisis, or, something usually happened, like a near-death experience. And they're like, all right, I'm going. And then it calls them to go do it. For me, it was a breakup. So that was like a big part of it. But I had always had this, like, this pull inside me that I knew that there was more out there in the world. Yeah. And I wanted to explore that. And then it's almost like the breakup gave me that excuse. You know?
Got it. One thing that comes to mind, and I want to get your opinion on this, being born in California and definitely into a good family, now being in multiple different continents and countries, have you looked at life differently, and do you appreciate life from a different perspective? Or, because obviously there's different cultures, right? And so, I think to believe that we live in this society or in this world, specifically in the US, where sometimes we tend to block the things that are happening around the neighbors, right? So what's your opinion on that?
For sure. I don't think you can get away with traveling to these countries, seeing what I've seen firsthand, and not take away a different perspective, right? It's impossible. Yeah. But it's also showed me that people are the same. Like, that's the true learning, is that people everywhere have the same motivations: their family, their personal growth, putting food on the table, like from the bare necessities to, like, people have fears, they have desires, they have goals. Like, people everywhere have those things. But there is a different level of opportunity. There's a different level of scales of economy. There's a different level of how the culture impacts someone's ability to find work, for instance. Like, being in Mexico here, especially in Playa del Carmen, a large portion of the population here is employed by tourist destinations, right? Like the hotels. It's a big industry here. And I've talked to some of the locals here because I've wanted to try to figure out what are the issues that are happening with Mexican people here. especially in Playa del Carmen. And one of the big issues is just that the tourist industry and like these hospitality companies, like it's not a good life. They're getting on the bus early in the morning, 6, 7 a.m. They're getting home at 11 p.m., traveling an hour, 2 hours from the hotel back to wherever they got picked up, and not making a lot of money, right? So you kind of look at that and you say, man, one, I'm super grateful. I'm super blessed. I'm super grateful to even be able to be here, to be part of this culture, to contribute to the culture. Because I like to think that I give more to the culture here than I take from it. But then also the immense perspective of like, hey, this is the apartment that I'm in, right? Versus, what else is out there. And if you walk, 15 blocks that way, you see, Mexico. You see Mexico, right? For what it is, not tourist here, come and see Mexico, right? So I think I've seen that experience. I've had friends that have gotten guns pulled on them in Peru in the middle of the street. In Colombia, someone was shot down the street from me. But here's the thing: how often does that happen in the U.S.?
Right.
Even more, right? It's like it's kind of like wherever you go, and that's why I try to also keep that in perspective. It's like some people have asked me, like, "Oh, how dangerous is it out here?" It's like, how dangerous is the U.S.? Look, there's fucking riots everywhere right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to, I believe, is what you focus on will expand. And so, you got to be able to see definitely the situation and the circumstances. Yet I also tend to believe that I rather not focus on the negativity. I'm not going to be dealing with that BS.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're bringing that more into your own space, right? And so, in my opinion, is like focus on what you want, not on what you don't want, right?
Exactly.
From that perspective. Now, from the time that you finally decided to take this journey to up until this point, what has been your biggest lesson?
That's a good question. There's so many. You could go down the list of like what I've learned traveling. You can go down the list of like what I've learned dating women internationally. That's been a very interesting experience. I've had girlfriends that don't speak English at all. Yeah. And try to learn that. I think my biggest lesson is that no matter what you're doing, you're committing to something. So what do I mean by that? Well, I thought for a long time while I was traveling, I was able to escape commitment to anything, right? Because when you travel every month to new countries and you have transient relationships and you're talking and experiencing new cultures, it doesn't really feel like you have to commit. Like I'm leaving next month, so whatever. Yeah. Like it's cool. But then the reality is that you're committing to something, which may be your business is suffering from that, or maybe some of your relationships suffering from that. And it doesn't always have to be negative. You're committing to travel and adventure, right? Mm-hmm. But then what I realized is once I said to myself, I actually want to live in Playa del Carmen, it was like, wow, this commitment, this anchor of commitment of actually living here, I can feel how much that's changed my life and my perspective. And I realized I had been committing to things all along. It's just a matter of like, what are you committing to?
Yeah, no, I love that. And in terms of maybe one of your biggest obstacles that you've overcame through your journey, what would that be?
I think, going from a place at one point where, pretty severe depressive episode, consideration of suicide to, quitting alcohol and, totally changing my health. I think for some time in my life, I had abused alcohol and drugs without really thinking about it. I mean, not, it would be mostly binge drinking. And then, once you start doing that, all of the judgment goes out of the way, right? So you end up using substances that are around or find reasons to do cocaine or whatever, and I'm a pretty open book on this. Like I have a video out there about me quitting and going through my first year. I'm going on my second year quitting alcohol. It will be that in August. And for me, like that was the biggest, I think, accomplishment, because it was something I felt like I wanted to do for a long time, but I had to have the courage to do it.
And what was the deciding factor, or what's that aha moment that kind of said, you know what, enough is enough. I need to make this change or start making that change.
Yeah. I think it was a series of events that had happened that, for instance, going to jail doesn't help, right?
Was that internationally or was that in the U.S.?
No, I've only been to jail in the U.S., fortunately enough.
Okay.
I don't know how I would get treated. I mean, not that you get treated great in U.S. jail either.
Right.
But, But I think looking at it from a perspective of what are these really low points in my life that have, forced me to have to really look at what the value of alcohol is in my life. And one of those, the last straw was a bachelor party that my friend hosted. And we did, beer Olympics, and we were, drinking all weekend. And I hadn't drank, granted, I was doing pretty well, but I hadn't drank like that in a long time. And I had already been kind of moving that out of that, moderating, doing well. And then we had that weekend, and then I have to fly back to Mexico because in the time I was living in Mexico City, where I think you were born.
Yes.
And I was flying back there, and I remember being on that flight fucking so hungover, just like, the point where you want to die. You're just like, I would rather just it be over than deal with this hangover. And then I had to work the next morning and the hangover lasted about 3 days.
Holy shit.
And I was dehydrated, and I was in Mexico. I was like, dude, that was it. Like, I decided that Sunday, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to. I was just like, why do I keep feeling like why do I put myself in a situation where I feel like this?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because exactly what you just did is that, right? It sometimes comes down to just that decision or that choice to really make an impact in your life, and whether, regardless of the consequences, could be good or bad, it doesn't matter. That decision, that choice, is going to be the next driving factor in your journey, right? And I was actually just talking about that a couple of days back, where all we need to do is just decide. Whatever it is, decide and just keep moving forward in that decision, right? And that's what you did. You decided to make a change, and there you go. You started making that change. Obviously, it's not as easy as said than done, yet it's just the initiative or the first step. And then after that comes the aftermath, which is what I want to know in terms of that for you. Like, what are some of the things you've done to really just keep you positive, which keep you getting those thoughts of suicide or thoughts of negativity outside of your mind, especially when you're like, traveling all over the place by yourself. Like, how do you contain yourself and stay positive and continue to push forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what you had said, it also goes back to commitment, right? Like, the decision was a commitment. Yeah. And that's where this commitment comes into play. It's like, you're always committing to something. So for me, staying positive around this was building the proper mental habits, building the things within my day that I knew was going to keep me fulfilled towards my journey of growth. I think the only way that we can be fulfilled in life is if we're having great conversations and if we're growing. Like, it really comes down to those two things every day. Are you having good conversations? Are you having stimulating conversations? Are they challenging you? Because if you live your life on a superficial level where you don't have deep conversations with anyone about your actual feelings, the things that you're going through, the ambitions and dreams and hopes that you have, those things all stay inside, bottled up, locked in, and it will drive you crazy. That's why people, when they work a lot of times in a 9-to-5 that they're not happy with, feel so shitty, because all day they're having conversations they don't want to have at a place that they don't want to be.
True. Yeah.
And it's fucking crazy, man. Like, to me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was also, challenging myself to travel and just do that. Like, I've always felt a sense of growth from travel, and it forces you to grow. If I land in a new country, I don't know the language, I find my Airbnb or wherever I'm staying, the first thing I got to do is figure out, Where's the gym? Where's the grocery store? Like all these little things that you don't even really think about that cause you to grow. And then you create a system. It's like, okay, well, when I get here, here's my system. I already know where this is. I already know what that is. And I joined communities. That's big too, right? Because we need connection. So I joined different travel communities that allowed me to connect with other people while I was traveling. At one point, there was a 8-month span that I was traveling with 40 different people at a time. So you end up making, your friends through there, and very international groups. So you start to learn other cultures, even outside of the culture that you're in. So those were the few things that I think really kept me positive.
Yeah. And I really love that, a lot of times we tend to create this roadblocks or put up a wall where like, no, this is not possible, or I cannot do this, or I cannot do that. And you just, clearly mentioned that thinking outside of the box, I guess, or looking at different aspects and saying, there's ways for us to be able to create and get what we want. And even with you just being in a different country that you've never been to is like, well, what can I do? Well, there's definitely somebody that has already gone through this or is going through this, and I can find these communities or just that networking, which I also believe that networking is huge in anything that you do, specifically when you're an entrepreneur, right? So, for you, so let's talk about the business that that you're doing, and also your own businesses. Give me a little bit more of that, and what does it entail?
Yeah. So at the moment, my main source of income and the thing that I'm super passionate about is my coaching business, which is the remote job coach. So I focus on helping high performers, so high achievers, people who've done well in their office jobs, have transferable skills that could be, done remotely. And I help them find legitimate remote work that they can do from anywhere with a company that will hire them. And that's come from years of obviously doing it myself and finding different positions with companies, as well as working with people on this and working at companies that supported this. And it's been an awesome road to get where I'm at right now. I'm very fortunate to be able to, choose my clients and enjoy like every day of like what I do, feel good about waking up and like know that I'm changing people's lives, because some of the people that have gotten remote work through my program, they have a fundamental change to what their life looks like, to what they can do every day, to what they view as possible. And if you can just change even one person and their perspective on like what's possible in their life, then man, that's the greatest feeling, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Definitely. It is. Oh, that's awesome. You might have to find a one of your clients or companies to give me a job in Playa del Carmen, because I got to go there. That's my next place.
Yeah. So. Well, the whole point is that, the jobs that I help people find, they could do from anywhere.
Yeah.
So you could live in Playa del Carmen and do it from there. And that's like the point, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. So have you ever considered doing group coaching, or is just primarily one-on-one coaching?
I do group coaching. Yeah. So actually that's like the main thing that I do is we have small groups, and then the one-on-one attention with me is just outside of the sessions. So people, have my text access and email, and they send me their resumes and LinkedIn. We go back and forth in between the sessions, but yeah, the primary focus is doing group coaching right now. So we have a couple sessions each week where groups come on and do that.
Right. And then the primary objective is for you to just really help this high performance find those remote jobs. Do you do anything outside of that, or any other different type of like mind or life coaching with them?
Yeah. And it's funny, that's actually found its way into the sessions too, because what I noticed is that a lot of people who come into a job search, they have a lot of limiting beliefs that they have to deal with first. So a lot of the life coaching gets brought into that. And I've had multiple people who've gotten jobs within the program. And then after that, we do life coaching or business coaching, because within, for example, one of the guys that got a job, he's doing a marketing job now that's with a company, and he's basically doing some of the things that I've done in my business. So now I can coach him on that and help him become a really, rock star employee at that business, so that he can move up the chain there, or he can improve his stock in the marketplace and go somewhere else eventually. So that's what it's focused on. And I have other business coaching clients where they're doing coaching businesses, and it's kind of been interesting because when you start putting yourself out there more and more, people just gravitate to you, not necessarily always the product, right? They're just like, hey, I want to work with you. And I'm like, yeah, let's find a way to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of that. I think you have to start creating this type of environment where it's, the product might be good, yet really what it comes down to is people working with you as a person, because you are your own brand. You are that face of the next steps in any company or in your own personal life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
In terms of the things you're looking to accomplish in the next, let's say, well, this year's been a little bit crazy for sure. Yet in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months, what are some of the things or projects that you're working on or you're looking to accomplish with your journey?
Yeah, and I'm like slightly hesitant to say it, but I'm gonna say it because I think it's worth saying.
It's a commitment too.
Yeah, I know. Are you into kind of manifestation and visualization? I feel like you probably would be.
Yes.
So I'll just tell you this. I've had on my, and I don't know if you can see this, but behind my wall here, I have
nice
big Post-it notes, right? That have different dreams on them. It has like my daily things that I need to do, my weekly things I need to do, like all sorts of stuff that I want to always be looking at. And one of the things that's on that list, the far right one, and it's been in my phone, it's been in my journal for the past couple of years, is that I want to produce an award-winning documentary, either on the production side or on the documentary or on the directing side. Shit you not, last week, a guy reached out to me out of the blue, out of nowhere, on LinkedIn, and he is a award-winning Emmy nominated documentary filmmaker who sold films to Netflix and Condé Nast. So he has films out there that have already been picked up. I looked through his work. It's pretty damn good. And we hopped on a call and he said, hey, I'm trying to make a documentary about remote work. And I'd like to ask you if you'd be willing to co-produce with me and split it 50-50. On the funding and like all this stuff. And I was like, I've never done this before. I don't know. If this is the right thing, but I'm like, yeah, dude, like, let's talk about it. So we're kind of in the early stages of building out what that's going to look like. He might come down here to Playa. So I don't really know, but that's something that, for instance, I would kind of put out into the universe and say, wow, like that would be a really cool thing to do within the rest of this year. And I don't know if it would be done within the rest of the year, but it would be something that I'd love to start and get the ball rolling. And then I've always wanted to dunk a basketball. I was actually training to dunk a basketball.
Really?
I'm about 5'10". So I got to get some major hops for that. But they closed down the basketball courts. So that's been a little bit harder to get out there. And then I want to be fluent in Spanish. I'm conversational at the moment. Yeah. My girlfriend's Mexican, so we go through periods where we talk in Spanish more, and then most of the time, los conversaciones muy profundo. Yeah. No hablamos en español porque it's too. There's a lot of times where we need to like communicate, and I can't talk in Spanish because I just don't know what to say. So.
Yeah. No, I love that. I actually want to touch on that because I love the fact that you're showing me, your like kind of like your dream sheet and things to that nature. Mm-hmm. And I think that, even when people are looking at it, well, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, or some of the things or habits that I can, start working on right now for the near future. I believe in that. I do believe in manifestation. I believe in affirmations. I believe in creating a vision board. I believe in creating I have an exercise that I tell people to create a dream sheet where you focus on things, awards, places, and I forget the other one. There's 4 different things, and you just start writing those things down, and then you kind of utilize that to, future pacing it and putting that into the universe. So how do you see, obviously you're doing it, and maybe you didn't do it in the past. How do you see that as being a critical part of success in your mind or just in your daily routine? Is that something that you would recommend people to kind of, if you're not doing it, kind of jump on that? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think you and I would both agree. You should be – I mean, let's look at it from if you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do it, it won't happen. If you don't put the things in front of you that you want to happen, if you don't put your focus on the things that you want to happen, if you don't tell people or the universe what you want out of it, you don't enable it to happen. So my thought and feeling is the more that I talk about it, the more that I put it in front of me, the more that I take directed action with the habits and the daily things that I think will get me there, the more the universe will show me how. And the how is never as important as what is it that you want? Because if you just say what you want and you put that out there, you start to see the how as you go, and you start to create the feedback loops, right? So for someone who's not doing it right now, I would say, how many feedback loops do you have right now that are telling you which way to go? Most likely it's none, because you're not even, putting something out there. So put something out there, and then it'll start to become more clear later on.
Yeah. I love what you said too, is the how is not as that important. I think that's where many people get hung up in that thought, in the idea of like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get the money to whatever? How am I going to write a book? How am I going to, whatever. And it's always that how, whereas you're right. I do believe that is what is the end in mind, and create some ideas, actions towards that, start taking some of those steps, and then the how is going to come. That's a secondary, I think, aspect of the process. The primary thing is, what do you want? And then start taking some sort of action, and then the how will come on its own, right? So definitely, I love that. I have a couple of questions more for you before I let you go. If people wanted to connect with you, know more about you, maybe learn more about your one-on-one coaching, how can people find you or connect with you?
Yeah, theremotejobcoach.com is probably the best place. Yeah, theremotejobcoach.com. Great domain. I was so happy to get it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm also I'm on every other social network, but I think that's probably the easiest place, especially for the remote job stuff. And LinkedIn is a great place to connect to. I love LinkedIn. I think it's one of the best, I think it's the best social platform out there for connection, actually real connection, and getting to expand and further your network. Yeah.
And then you've talked a little bit about some of the things that you do. Are there any particular habits, rituals that you do every day that you must get done every day for your day to be positive?
Yep, absolutely. I don't know if you could see, I got a whiteboard back there.
I see that.
Couch. Yeah. And I tick that. So on that whiteboard, so right now is a little bit different because I'm doing a program. It's called 75 Hard. Have you ever heard of that?
I've done it. I've done 75
Oh, you did
Hard.
It?
Yeah.
Okay.
What day are you on?
So this is my second time through, and right now I'm on day 12.
So no tacos for you. I mean, all those tacos, you're not gonna have.
No, tacos are good. I let so I have in the creation of my diet, I have no bread.
Got you.
No candy, no chocolate, no sugar, but tacos are okay. Tacos really aren't that bad for you.
Yeah, I'm starting phase 2 on Monday, as a matter of fact. So I've done 75 hard as phase 1. I'm gonna do phase 2. So yeah.
Congrats. That's awesome. I don't know about the, I wanted to do, so I tried 75 hard about 10 times last year.
Yeah.
And failed. Like I had to restart. And I just said, hey, I got to come back to this. I did it earlier this year, finally completed it. And then I had a buddy of mine who tried to do it with me earlier this year. He didn't complete it. And now he's trying to go through his first time. So I said, hey, I'll jump on with you this quarantine. I've added some weight. Let's do it. And then outside of the things in 75 hard, I also do meditation. I also, what else? I make my bed every morning, journal. I do deep work sessions. And then all the things in 75 hard. So for people who don't know what that is, it's basically a program that for 75 straight days, you got to drink a gallon of water. You got to work out twice. At least one of those workouts has to be outdoors, 45 minutes each workout. You can't drink alcohol. Not an issue for me on that one. You got to stick to a diet. No cheat meals. You got to take a progress picture each day, and then you got to read 10 pages of a nonfiction or entrepreneurship book. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah.
But man, it tests you. I tell you what.
Yeah, and when I did my the first time that I did it, I actually felt a couple of times I started and, I had to restart. And I was doing a lot of traveling, right? And so it sounds easy. It sounds like there's not a whole lot going on. Yet when you're, taking a couple of different flights during the morning or during the night and you have a busy schedule, finding the time to do the workouts or reading or do, it's
the
just
water too. Like if you're traveling, you got to take a gallon with you.
Yeah. I had a lot of like close calls with that. I'm like either driving or flying. I'm like, I gotta be in the restroom like every freaking 5 minutes. So it sounds like is easy, although it's not. I think it does a lot though. It is really more of that mental challenge. It's gonna really help you, in my opinion, help me. The temptation or the influences or like, oh yeah, you can have a drink. It's my birthday. Have a drink today. I'm like, no, I'm not drinking. Have a drink, and you get a lot of that. And that's just like anything in life. And that's one thing that I really liked. The 75 hard is a good practice. And definitely, I love the fact that you're doing that because it really speaks volume in different aspects, right? So that's awesome. The last question I have for you, you've given us a lot of great tips. If you can give us one last one, if somebody's going through a challenging time right now, whatever that might be, what would be your advice that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge?
Well, I think first and foremost is remember it's temporary. Like I think we often forget, like in that moment, that this is going to last forever. Like we think that. But it's temporary. Everything that's ever happened to you in your life has been temporary. Emotions, they're temporary. So take a step back first, look at the big picture and just realize like, with some time, challenges and things in your life can get better. Now, obviously you do have to take action towards making your life better and no one's here to save you, right? You have to do it yourself. Obviously there's going to be people in your court. For most people, they have people that can support them. So any other very actionable things would be find a coach, find someone who could be impartial, to be in your corner, because oftentimes we go to our family members or our friends and it's not fair that our relationship with our family members and friends gets bombarded with some of these challenges. And then you start to create this unfortunate cycle of every time that you are connecting with a family member or a friend, you're unloading your baggage on them. And that's not the kind of relationships you want to create. So pay someone who can help you. And I think I have 3 coaches myself. So I believe in it. Fully, it's changed my life having people in my corner. I feel like I have a team. This is not Jordan's show. This is like the whole team's show. And that's a different mindset you have to take, but get some help, right? Get some help because there's been other people who've gone through your challenges. There's even coaches out there who are just starting who are willing to do free sessions and help you out. Yeah. So if you can't afford it, definitely during COVID, people are doing free stuff right now. So go out and find some support.
Yeah. And I love that. And part of that too is like sometimes we tend to find comfort or get ideas or some sort of feedback from friends or family. And I'm not saying that that's not the right place to look. They may not have the answers though. They may not know how to go about it or how to direct it to the right place. And I mean, you yourself, you do one-on-one coaching and you have 3 coaches. So that speaks a lot of volumes, right? And I believe in that too. Like you definitely got to be able to get someone that can mentor you, that can help you, that can guide you through whatever you're going through, because they might have an idea that can definitely impact your life positively. Just like if I wanted to, work remotely, I don't know how to start with that. I got to go talk to Jordan, right? And so you got to be able to find that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing because going through life solo, that only exasperates your challenges. It only makes things take longer. It only makes things harder. So find the help and stop building resentment with your family members.
Yeah, no, definitely. Jordan, thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else that you want to say before I let you go?
Yeah, man, I just say thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Really enjoy the conversation as well. your story's inspiring and keep inspiring the world, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan, for being here. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on pretty much every platform. Do me a favor, please comment, share, like this post. I want to hear your feedback, and I will see you at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a wonderful day.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.